Hi, my name is Justin Sterling. I am an attorney and the founder of the Sterling Firm, a professional law corporation. We're speaking about the fair use of copyrighted material in nonfiction works, such as documentaries and commentaries. Let's speak briefly about fair use, insurance, and licenses. What is fair use? Fair use is a doctrine for determining when a person could use another's work in their own work without permission. The factors for determining fair use have been laid out in Section 107 of the Copyright Act. The courts apply the fair use doctrine on a case-by-case basis based on whether or not it is fair in the given situation. For many nonfiction works, the footage that is necessary is not available without applying the fair use doctrine. For this reason, when creating documentaries and other nonfiction works, such as commentaries and critiques, it is very important to obtain errors and omissions insurance. E&O insurance covers your company or you individually for errors in the production that you may make. E&O provides you protection in the case that a mistake happens. It is similar to malpractice insurance for attorneys or professional liability insurance for accountants, architects, and engineers. The best time to purchase the E&O insurance is before the risk is taken. The policy language should be reviewed by an attorney. Make sure the production is insured. It is also a good practice to at least attempt to obtain a license from the copyright owner. In the legal capacity, a license is another way to say permission. As the copyright owner, they are also the holder of exclusive rights, including the right to use the copyrighted work. Permission can be granted for any limited purpose of use of the copyrighted work. Permission can be granted for a price and a fee. Many times creators of many works, images, and films will not give permission for their work to be used by others, or they will want an expensive cost for licensing the use of their work. Particularly, this cripples the creativity of documentaries because it increases the burdens of time and money in licensing film footage, clips, music, and photos. Documentaries largely rely on others' work because it properly demonstrates certain points cinematically. Unless they can obtain permission by the copyright owners, documentaries are severely hindered. Let's speak briefly about the documentary filmmakers' statement of best practices in fair use. To better help and assist documentarians, American University conducted studies and a report was issued entitled Documentary Filmmakers' Statement of Best Practices in Fair Use. This is an essential resource for every documentarian. The statement makes clear what documentary filmmakers currently regard as reasonable application of the copyright fair use doctrine and discusses the 4 classes of situations where fair use may apply. If you are interested in obtaining a copy of the statement, please contact the Sterling Firm by emailing info@thesterlingfirm.com. The first class of situations is when the documentarian is employing copyrighted material as the object of social, political, or cultural critique. In this situation, the use of the copyrighted work is for critical analysis. For example, a documentarian may use quoted material as an illustration of his critique. Criticism is at the core of the First Amendment freedom of speech, and fair use of others' creative work is appropriate in this situation so long as the documentarian is analyzing or commenting on the work. The way the documentarian may express commentary can differ, and it may be extensive or slight. However, the use of the copyrighted work should not be so extensive or pervasive so that it becomes the main attraction of the new work and is no longer a function of the documentarian's critique. Simply put, the copyrighted material cannot take the spotlight away from the commentary itself. The second class of situations is when the documentarian is quoting copyrighted works of popular culture to illustrate an argument or point. In this situation, the copyrighted work is quoted because it illustrates an argument. The documentarian is not using the work as a critique, but to evidence an argument that the documentarian is developing. The copyrighted work is being used for a different purpose than why it was originally created. However, it is important that the documentarian attribute the work properly and use quotations and cite sources. Once again, it is important that the quotation is not used any longer than necessary and not being used merely as a way to save costs from creating original content and footage. The third class of situations is when the documentarian is capturing copyrighted media content in the process of filming something else. Sounds and images are captured during filming, such as from posters, radio, and televisions playing in the background. The copyrighted work is incidentally captured, and it is permissible to use it so long as it is, again, not pervasive. However, the content must not have been requested, and it must be properly attributed and not exploited in its own right. The content captured must not be the primary focus of the new work, and incidental music must not be a substitute for a soundtrack. The fourth class of situations is when the documentarian is using copyrighted work in a historical sequence. That is, the documentarian uses the copyrighted work to tell a historical story or to make a historical point. For example, a documentarian may use words that were spoken during particular events and music that was connected with particular events, in addition to photographs and film footage of particular events. These works are many times available to be licensed for reasonable prices, but sometimes it may be difficult. However, the copyrighted material may still be able to be used based on fair use if the project is not centrally based on the copyrighted material and the work used is only illustrative and not used extensively. The copyright owner must be identified if the work is used in this type of situation. Okay, as a summary of the fair use doctrine, to summarize, when using others' copyrighted work, it is best to follow the principles of fairness and reasonableness. It is not appropriate to use another creator's work extensively without permission. It should also be noted that fair use does not need to be solely used for educational purposes. A new creation can be for commercial advantage and can be for profit. Moreover, because efforts to obtain a license from the copyright owner was not successfully obtained, does not have any effect on whether the fair use doctrine will apply to the situation at hand. Even so, evidence of your efforts to obtain a license shows your good faith in the process and can be very persuasive in arguing fair use of another's copyrighted material. When creating a documentary or commentary, footage of another's copyrighted work will have to be used and reviewed in order to not be pervasive or more extensive than necessary, so that fair use can be properly applied. Again, this is why E&O insurance is very important to have. It is also very important to attempt to license the work for a fee and to inform the copyright owner that alternatively, the work can be used for free by way of fair use. When negotiating such deals with copyright owners, it is appropriate to have an attorney correspond and educate the parties on fair use. Fair use is an equitable principle, and the courts apply it on a case-by-case basis. There is no bright line rule, and all factors must be considered in every given factual situation. For each situation, reasonable minds may differ, and this is why it is good to have a knowledgeable, informed attorney working for your interests. What is the safe form of fair use? It is important to know when fair use can safely be applied and know when it is okay to not have permission during production of a project. Again, there is no bright line rule and the facts are often gray. I cannot stress this enough. However, the courts have given numerous opinions, and it can be safe to say that fair use applies when all the following conditions are satisfied. 1. The copyrighted material only illustrates or supports a point that the creator is making in the new work. It is not the primary focus. 2. The new creator of the new work only uses the copyrighted work as much as necessary. It is not extensive or pervasive. And 3. The connection between the copyrighted work used and the purpose of why it is being used is obvious to the average viewer in the intended audience of the new work. If any of these conditions are absent, then it is not considered a safe application of fair use. The situation is gray and open to argument. The use of the copyrighted work still may be considered to be fair use. The application depends on the purpose of why the copyrighted material is being used. The copyrighted work must be used for a different purpose than why the work was originally created. and the amount of the copyrighted work used must only be as much as reasonably appropriate. Let's discuss about giving credit. Fair use of another's copyrighted work is part of your First Amendment right to freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom to comment, and freedom to critique. However, credits need to be given to the sources of your content. Many creators give credit by including the source during the course of the production when the copyrighted material is in fact used. Credit is then again given at the end roll. It is important to not be deceptive and misleading. Do not say things like allowed by, or permitted to use by, or most obviously licensed from the original copyright owner. That is misleading, because obviously a license was not obtained and the work is being used pursuant to fair use. Giving credit is also very important if the new work is being distributed outside the United States. Many foreign countries require by law that attribution be given. Right to attribution is in fact part of the exclusive rights of a copyright owner in many foreign countries. If credit is not given, it is actually considered an infringement of the copyright. In this regard, it is important for documentarians to properly give credit by also including the director and the writer of a particular copyrighted work, even though they may not both be the copyrighted owners. This is required by law in many foreign countries, and giving proper credit is an absolute necessary to claim fair use of another's copyrighted material in other foreign countries. Now that we covered the application of the fair use doctrine in nonfiction documentaries and commentary projects, you can be more aware of what is required. However, again, it is always better to be safe and attempt to get permission and obtain a license for use of the copyrighted material. This shows good faith on your part. Stay tuned for more useful information. If you like these videos, please feel free to comment, subscribe, or leave us a thumbs up on YouTube. And please feel free to forward this video to any friends or family members. If you have any questions, or if you would like a consultation with a lawyer, I encourage you to contact the Sterling firm at 310-498-2750 or send us an email at info@thesterlingfirm.com. And obviously, the best and most generous way to say thank you is to refer a client or to give a positive referral. Please check out our Yelp page and LinkedIn to make a positive referral. Thank you for allowing me to be of service, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and have a wonderful day.